Hi everybody. Now, if you've recently got into Resident Evil, or maybe you've recently returned to Resident Evil with the remakes of Resident Evil 4, 2 and 3 and the excellent 7 and Village, you may well be wondering what on earth is going on. What is the history and lore behind this venerable game series that has been going on for an awful long time? So what I'm going to do in this video is mainly give you some pointers where you could go and kind of expand your knowledge of these games. Now, the first place is just the ordinary Resident Evil wiki at ResidentEvilFandom.com. This is quite a good place to just go through and just click around kind of randomly. They do have a very good timeline as well that you can dig into, but this will give you like the background of the different games and sort of that sort of level of experience. There is, however, a really cool video by GameSpot that goes through the complete Resident Evil timeline up to Resident Evil Village, Resident Evil 8. In fact, it looks like it goes right up to the Shadows of Rose DLC, which is round about sort of the time of the recording this video. And it's actually quite good. Now, I don't know how accurate it is, but it goes in chronological order. So as the Resident Evil timeline sort of goes forward, it's not 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Things happen in different times. And also, there's lots and lots of games and films and comics out there that maybe you weren't aware of that fill in bits of the lore and bits of the history as we go along. And it may be 45 minutes long, but I quite enjoyed watching it, and it sort of taught me quite a lot as well. Again, I don't know how accurate it is. If you want more of a history of the games, there's another video I'll link to below by Nick 930 who goes through basically the history of the games going along. So that's definitely another one worth watching. Again, it's a very long video, 47 minutes. If you're more into audio stuff, highly recommend the First Aid Spray podcast and the Resident Evil podcast. And I'll put links to these home pages for these podcasts as well. They're both panel type podcasts, and I think they're great. They're great podcasts to listen to, and they're also really knowledgeable, really knowledgeable about Resident Evil. And so what I've been enjoying over the last couple of months is going back and listening to their back episodes of mainly of the games I've played, so that I can relate to what they're talking about. But they're very lore heavy as well, in the fact they explain why things are happening. And what's particularly cool as well is, especially with the Resident Evil podcast, you can go back to the kind of the doldrums that Resident Evil was in after Resident Evil 6. And then when Resident Evil 7 comes out and you listen to that podcast, the sheer joy of lots of the members as they get what they see as a great Resident Evil resurgence and experience back. But there's more for the Resident Evil podcast, because on the site they have the lore room and they have the encyclopedia as well, where there is lots and lots of information that you can look at. And also, if you really want to get deep, I mean, you've got things like the profiles of different people, but if you really want to get deep, there's the Resident Evil timeline. Now what I'll do is I'll put a link to this, but I couldn't see the link to it actually on the Resident Evil site. It's got to be there somewhere, but I couldn't see it. And this goes in so much detail, from ancient times through to the current times. You might say, well, why ancient times? Well, because the idea with Resident Evil is that some of the sources of the viruses that you come across in the games, they come from the beginning of life on Earth, and then they were discovered and they were used by nefarious forces to cause all the problems that are happening. And there's all these amazing PDFs that go through in great detail about the lore and history. So it's highly recommended if you really want to dive very deeply into what's going on and what's happening. I would say, if you're listening to this or watching this and thinking, well, wait a minute, do I really need to watch all this or listen to all this if I want to play Resident Evil games? Absolutely not. You don't have to at all. You can they're all kind of standalone. Well, they are linked to each other. They're not standalone adventures, but in each game you can just play it and enjoy it for the video game that it is. But it's very nice when you do know a little bit more, especially because then you can then see some of the Easter eggs and some of the callbacks to other games within the other ones, which is very nice. So there we go. Check out the links in the description below this video. If you found the video useful, hit like. If you want to see one, press subscribe, and I will of course see you again soon.